Everybody, it is currently 6:16 p.m. Tuesday, June 9th. I have Dylan Sign back on the show because I think, Dylan, this is perhaps the biggest moment in West Virginia athletics since the Orange Bowl, and that is our Mountaineers are in the College World Series for the first time ever. Dylan, of all the things that well, first of all, how are you doing? Before I get into that
Yeah,
question,
we got a couple of things to talk about today. One good and one bad. And I think you and I both know, and
let's
that
start
the
with the good.
logo,
Let's start with the
the
Mountaineers. Yeah,
logo, the logo on your forehead is one that used to have a very negative connotation in
I
Morgantown,
still love it though. I love
and
that
I
logo.
do. I
So
have,
yeah,
the association former head coach Greg Van Zant was a major proponent of that logo. It was brought back this year because Coach Maisie and Oliver Luck, former AD, were not big fans of it, and it has taken on a kind of nostalgia feel to it because it was not. It was a little bit before the new stadium, Kendrick Family Ballpark, was already constructed before you and I crossed paths. So we never had the pleasure, because I know you and I, being baseball guys, would have been, if you were in Morgantown in 2012, we would have been sharing probably the only two guys in the bleachers at Hollyfield on a couple of ball games. And I
I
was
wouldn't have
having,
been there. I wouldn't have been there circa 2012.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. There was almost nobody there, and I had this conversation on some message boards this week that I can recall vividly sitting at the end of a row and getting side eyed by a gentleman 30 or 40 years older than me when I was in high school because I sat down in the wrong row of Holly Field 6 feet away from somebody. Like,
Yeah.
that's the level of attendance that West Virginia baseball had before we joined the Big 12. And now we've got people being taken out by tents on the side of a 20-degree incline to watch this baseball team.
I
It's
mean,
something I think you and I ever thought we saw.
we're going to get into everything. I think the history of the program and how far it's come in the last 14 years. But I want to start things off. And this, I mean, we're talking about the same thing, I suppose, but just how far this program has come. But of all the things that I think someone would have told you as a fellow lifelong West Virginia fan, if you had told someone like in your lifetime, West Virginia is going to win 3 of the major bowl games in football, go to a Final Four, and or go to the College World Series. Ask this question circa 2005. You never would have thought College World Series was on the table. You'd have been like, okay, Final Four I can see. BCS bowl game, sure. College World Series, that ain't happening. And here we are in 2026, the year of our Lord 2026, and the Mountaineers are going to Omaha.
Yeah. And it had been, and even just put it, Omaha didn't even really exist the last time. Like, they're talking about, oh, hey, 1955, the Mountaineers got close to Omaha. Nobody even knew what Omaha
No,
was in the 50s. That wasn't
yeah.
a concept. And so
The
for
super
us,
regionals didn't exist. It was, I
no,
think, I don't know how
super
many teams were
regionals
in it.
didn't
Yeah.
exist until I want to say that was 99 was when the current
Yeah.
iteration of the NCAA tournament currently constructed existed. In 99, and even honestly, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, Oliver Luck was like, do we keep baseball? Like, do we?
That's
Like,
what's
is it worth
even
it?
crazier
Like,
is,
this team should
yeah.
not exist at all. And Oliver Luck said, you know what? We're going to do it because we're in the Big 12. Like, the ACC was a decent baseball conference back then. It's fallen off. I would not say considerably, but has fallen off in the last few years. And we got into the SEC, I think you would have seen a similar almost requirement from the other members for us to invest in baseball. And at the time, baseball was the bell cow of the Big 12 back then. It's shifted, with Yormick being a little more of a basketball guy, more than baseball, but it's still, you had to be good at baseball to be in the Big 12.
There was a requirement, I believe, because our stadium didn't fill, or the ballpark. It's not even really a ballpark. Holly didn't even fill, I think, the minimum
No,
requirements.
it was Holly Field because that's what
Yeah.
it was. It was a field, and they had to actually, and people don't recall this, 2008, like we're talking, and like I've spent plenty of time, been privileged enough to spend some time with Ernie Galuski and Jed Jerko and David Carpenter, titans of the program, and talking ball with guys like that. They had to put in seats to get into the Big 12 at Holly Field. Like they brought in additional bleachers because it was, and I went to a 1A high school.
Galuski, the father of the kid who was the starting shortstop for a few years, like in circa 2017.
Uncle, but yeah.
Uncle. Okay. I'd heard that name before. Yeah. I'd been to Holly once. Didn't know what it was at the time. You could have convinced me it was a local youth baseball field. Like
it's right next to what for a long time was the indoor where the primary event that Holly Field has been associated with or used for in the last 10 years since it stopped hosting baseball games is the Walk for Life. Like that's the level of facility that this is. It's a Relay for Life facility. That's the level of infrastructure that's there.
Paint a little bit more of a picture. 1,500 capacity, really. No public restrooms. No public restrooms. No locker rooms at Holly. And that's what the program was dealing with. Nobody cared. I mean, if you Mountaineer fans, like we pretty much follow every sport going on, especially the major sports, football, men's basketball, I would say women's basketball. Baseball was not in the equation 2010, 2011, 2012. And even my dad, if you knew my dad, obviously huge WVU fan, and he's also a huge baseball fan, loves baseball, loves the Cincinnati Reds. And I remember growing up with him, and this was around the time I started figuring out about college baseball, figuring out what the College World Series was, circa 2006, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And I was like, how are the Mountaineers doing? And he would be like, I don't know. Did not care because the program was just such a doormat. And I'd looked it up, and this isn't a program.
You couldn't even win the Big East, and most people don't even realize the Big East plays baseball. Like the Big East does have baseball teams. Like St. John's made it to the Supers this year, which was astounding. Like,
and at the time,
the Big East champion in 2026 was a 4 seed. Okay, like that's the Big East as a baseball conference, and we couldn't even win.
In the mid 2000s, it was decent. You could argue like Notre Dame was okay.
UConn was fine for a while.
UConn is usually pretty decent, and I think Seton Hall and St. John's like kind of sort of fought for a tournament spot. But all in all, like between 1997 and 2012, 16 seasons, 32 total teams from the Big East made the NCAA tournament, so 2 per year. And West Virginia finished in the top 4 times in the Big East during that stretch. So basically, if you're not a top 2 or 3 team in the conference, you're not making the tournament. We finished 4th in the top 4 times in 16 years. Everything else, we were either mid to the bottom tier, and it was a joke. We've been over that over and over again. But I wanted to touch up on this. This isn't a new program that has just struggled. Program has been around since 1892. And in our first, I believe I looked 105 years, we made the tournament 11 times. In our first 100, basically once every 20 years, we made the tournament in baseball. So, to your point, when Oliver Luck comes in, has a strong consideration of dropping the program, I wouldn't have blamed him if he had dropped it. Rolls the dice. I think at the time, like Kentucky was starting to turn their baseball program around. I'm trying to remember who else. UConn had a decent run, and I think he just looked around. And Virginia obviously has a pretty good baseball history too. And I think he just looked around and said, there's no reason why we can't be competitive in baseball. Rolled the dice. And obviously he knew he had to get a new ballpark built, fired Van Zandt and the coaching staff, and brought in Randy Mazey. And that's when everything changed. Randy Mazey, who I have a ton of respect for. I was talking about this with somebody, and I said, can you name a program where the most influential coach isn't the winningest or has the best win percentage, But there's no doubt in anyone's mind that he is the most influential coach in program history. And that's Randy Mazey to WVU's baseball program. Doesn't have the most total wins, doesn't have the best win percentage, but there's no question what he built was a success.
Well, and that's what you and I had this exact conversation probably in the last 48 hours. I said, if, and people say all the time, you win a big game here and there. And, we've mentioned guys getting statues, and like statues is a big, there is nobody in the pantheon of West Virginia athletics in the last 20 years that deserves a statue more than Randy Mazey sitting outside of center field at that ballpark. Because you went, like we talked about, should not have a baseball program. Like, I remember the local media going nuts. People like lost their minds about the TIF district that paid for the ballpark, tax incremental financing. Why are we wasting $20 million on a baseball program? Like, the team, like what are we doing? And even Coach Mazey in an interview during the Supers said, it was like in between game 1 and game 2, I believe, on Randy's Ridge, was telling local media, going, did I think this was possible? Yes. Did a single one of y'all believe me? No. And should you have? Probably not. Like, that
Probably
was
not.
like, he's like, look, like, I thought we could do this. I knew that we had a plan that we could do it. And did he probably even think that when he took that job in 2013?
It was 2012. So 2013 was his first year.
Right. Did he think that we were 13 years from Omaha, or did he think we were maybe 30? Like,
I remember, I will say, like, when we fired Van Zandt, that kind of perked my ears, because I have wanted to have a good baseball program, because we've beat a dead horse over it many times now. But once March ended and the men's basketball team was eliminated in the tournament and the women's basketball team was eliminated, everyone moved.
The highlight of the spring was when the football season ticket renewals happened.
Right. It was okay. let's move to football. Like, nobody was thinking about baseball. And when we moved on from Van Zandt, like, it perked my ears. I was like, oh, I think we mean business here. And Oliver Luck hires Randy Mazey, who I think obviously had a pretty good resume considering our situation, had been a head coach twice for Charleston Southern and East Carolina, took both programs to the tournament, had a bit of a falling out at East Carolina. I believe he got fired. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was kind of a weird dynamic there. But had bounced around as an assistant at some pretty big time programs like Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, and where we hired him, TCU. Was from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, so just a hop, skip, and a jump from Morgantown. Was very familiar up and down the East Coast with recruiting areas. And I think we needed him a lot more than he needed us. But I don't know about you. I've only talked to Randy Mazey, honestly, one time at Kegler's, and he just happened to be there. And I was like, what's up, coach? Didn't really get into anything. But I think he, had a fire in him that he was like, I can still be a head coach. But I think he wasn't going to leave unless it was the right job, like at a pretty big school, like a Power 4, Power 5 at the time school. And he likely wasn't going to get that opportunity in the SEC. I don't think he was going to get that opportunity in the ACC. The Big Ten baseball just isn't particularly strong, especially at the time. Now with the West Coast schools, they're all right. And I don't think he was a fit for a Pac-10 school or Pac-12 school, whatever it was at the time. So it really was like a Big 12 school. It was probably going to be the opportunity he'd get. And West Virginia is what came calling. And I think he was like, I can still do it. This school needs it. What do you think? I think he had a bit of a fire to him.
No, I think that's what it was. And, we talked about Johnstown not far away. I'll be driving through Johnstown in the next a couple of weeks as I go back to Morgantown, and he knew the area. I think he considered it. Maybe he looked at it on the latter half of his career. He's like, I've got one more job in me.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think this was like a little bit of a homecoming, a chance to prove that he could still do it, like you said, and just to button it up a little bit on, in a program that was really ready to get fired up. Because something that got bounced around to close the book on Van Zandt, as we get some positive news, we're finally retiring 5, long time thing that you and I and Pat McAfee at the top have argued for. Pat White was a pretty bang up guy on the diamond back in the day and wanted to be a two-sport athlete and refused to play for Greg Van Zandt. He was that well liked among his
I've
players.
heard a lot of negative stories about Van Zandt from former players.
Right. So I think that shows you. And then I think very much in the same way as we've transitioned, we'll see how the long term goes with the men's basketball program, where you've just got by all accounts, Ross Hodge was first or second row. McAfee and Rich Rod got all the two people to the right of Pat McAfee in game one. Ross Hodge was sitting there too. Like, I know nobody was.
He was on the other
Guy.
side.
Yeah. So he's there too. Like a good guy. Like, that's something that I think Ren Baker's done a fantastic job, is hiring people like at the top that are just good people. Coach Kellogg, fantastic person. I haven't had a chance to interact with him directly, but everybody that's interacted with him says he's a fantastic guy. Same for Coach Hodge. We'll see how the winning, comes with the men's basketball program. Recruiting has gone exceptionally well. I think better than probably even you and I would have anticipated. And Coach Mazey, and I know you and I had this conversation, maybe a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago or so, when Coach Mazey decided to hang it up. And they tabbed Coach Sabins.
Remember, I forgot about that. We had that conversation.
And you said, I don't know about the Sabins cat. And I said, no. I was like, I've had conversations with people that are close to Sabins, and they said he's the next coming. He's gonna be a good one. I don't think that I saw it.
It wasn't so much I was, I don't know about Sabins. I just don't like when a head coach who has had success at a school, like unprecedented success at a school, and kind of sort of, it seems like, chooses his successor. It just doesn't really seem to work. And that was the vibe I got. But I was like, well, let's see what happens. It's a shame we're going to lose Mazey. Let's hope Sabins knows what he's doing, and that certainly seems to be the case right now. But I can't believe it's still, I don't know about you, it still feels surreal. Like, I have to keep reminding myself.
I've looked at every time the bracket comes up and they put on the teams, or I've never been a huge, I have lived on the college baseball subreddit in the last probably week, and people are like, yeah, look at it, like, I won, like, you and I can't even really believe that we're there and that we're watching baseball in June, first of all. And then people are looking at us going, people who are not West Virginia fans, that are not diehard homers, that are living through rose-colored blue and gold glasses, people outside of the program going, they might mess around and win this thing. And like, you and I as Mountaineer fans in any sport, having somebody else besides the nonsense people in our fan base in certain instances saying anything about us doing it, and you'll get a major kick out of this, because you and I haven't had this conversation. I was just going back and forth with some Cal Poly fans during the Supers, and even game 2, when it got blown open very early. Cal Poly fans are in the 6th and 7th inning before the rain delay. Mountaineer fans are going, and everybody's like, hey, like, you guys did it. And to a T, Mountaineer fans, shut up. Nope. It's not over. You guys are up 17-1. There's still guys on the field. It's not over. And Cal Poly fans are legitimately, like, and it's a very, from what I understand, a very good academic school. So there's some probably pretty intelligent alumni that are just mindless. Like, what? Who hurt you? And Mountaineer fans are like, let me tell you. And so, like, that was, like, that's the vibe of West Virginia athletics. Like, we cannot believe, like, yeah, it's not over. Like, job's not done. Like, there's still, games to be played. We can't believe we did it. Like, what happened?
No, I will say that first game against Cal Poly, before I get into what I really want to talk about, I was so tight that morning going into that, 11 a.m. start for me, noon for you. You could have shoved a lump of coal up my ass. It would have come out of Diamond. I was so tight and nervous going to that Cal Poly game. And
I don't care what conference that they came from.
just because we were so close. Like it was like we should win this series, and we're almost there. Yes.
You and I are like we're like, okay, like there's a decent shot we get out of the regional. We had a pretty tough regional. Wake Forest is a decent team. Kentucky obviously has given us fits the last couple of years. That rivalry has come along, and then we're all looking at that going. And this conversation I had with a colleague of mine, is former USA baseball guy, so he knows the game and follows it. South Carolina fan. Looking at that bracket, UCLA had one of the most dominant regular seasons in the last couple of decades, not like in the Big Ten or in their conference, period. They lost 6 games between February and May. Like 6 in that time frame out of, 60 the college baseball teams play? And then they lose 2 in, and Memorial Day, to the end of the month. And so anybody that was, we're like, because I remember being miffed that we got the 16 seed going.
Yep.
Cool. All right, we're gonna go out to LA. Get a nice little vacation. Hopefully, they get the guys some extra hotel rooms. They can hang out in Malibu. After we get shown the door in Supers for the 3rd year in a row, if we make it that far. And then UCLA just implodes, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, we knew we were playing a California school if we made it to Supers, we thought, but we didn't think we'd have to Google what town they're from.
I, honest to goodness, thought Cal Poly was in LA. Turns out it's not.
No, I mean, we played them twice. I don't know where San Luis Obispo is. I'm lucky I've learned how to say it.
It's in between San Francisco and LA. I looked it up.
I learned that it's a gas station town on the 405 or whatever that goes up at, you just stop. It exists because it was halfway between a couple of cities. That's where you ran out of gas. Like that's, and now we're playing wait, we just have to beat those guys. This feels like for the trauma that Mountaineer fans have for good reason. It felt like the ultimate setup.
Yeah. To my brother's point, when we drew Cal Poly, he was like, we were due for a fortunate draw. Like, we had LSU last year, and then North Carolina the year before. We were due to have a favorable draw, but it took some guts and balls to get there. I mean, that's what was kind of disappointing. Like, if we had been eliminated, even though we were a regional host in that first weekend, I wasn't that upset. It would have sucked. I'm like, man, we just can't. You can't lose on your own home field. When we lost that second game to Kentucky, and I was like, I just don't see us winning 3 in a row. It's very difficult. What was the most disappointing was looking at the UCLA regional and being like, man, like the one time, like it looks like we might get a favorable draw and we're going to blow it on our own home field. And then guys ended up balling out, and heroics against Kentucky, Paul Schoenfeld in game 1, Armani Guzman, my guy, Armani Guzman in game 2. Just
a quick little nugget. There is the website that, you and I have spent our fair share of time on looking at new t-shirts the last couple of days. The NILstore.com. The number 1 and number 2 total sales per NIL athlete in the entire NCAA, all 4 letters, Gavin Kelly and Armani Guzman.
I saw that.
That's the level of West Virginia athletics. And going that, we've been on NBC Nightly News twice this week. Like it's incredible. That's where West Virginia athletics is going. Like, we are America's team now? What?
Yeah. It certainly seems that way.
It's unreal.
But anyway, so back to what I was saying about Cal Poly. I was so tight that first game, and we pretty much broke it open pretty early in that game. Went up 3-1. It really wasn't a contest in that first game. Then game 2, if you remember, we started because we were the visitor in game 2. It wasn't 3 up, 3 down, but I think we got to like the 4th or 5th batter. Their stud pitcher strikes out whoever was at the plate, I don't remember, for the third out, goes off the field, kind of taunts the crowd a little bit, and I remember raising my eyebrows at that. I was like, okay, like
It's
hope
good.
he
Well,
knows what
and
he's
I think
getting
you and I had the
into.
same thought. It's going one or two ways. Either he is going to have the
Well,
game of
and
his
he
life,
wasn't even
or
dominant in that first inning. He had 20
20.
pitches or something.
It was a 22 or 23 pitch inning. He
Yeah.
saw 4 or 5. Two of the ball. One of the 3 outs is a fly ball to right center. The other one was
We hit him pretty
fluke
good.
single. Like put 2 in the grass. Strike out the side on 9 to 11 pitches.
Right. Yeah, you absolutely.
Like, okay, like you're in it. But even honestly, and if you were like particularly tuned into the broadcast in detail, but before he even picks the ball off the dirt that the umpire had laid down, he was taunting the crowd before the first pitch. I'm like,
I didn't see
okay,
that.
there are 8 to 12,000 people, depending on whose math you use and what time of day you used it. You are already like, this is the biggest crowd you have seen in your baseball career. I get wanting to be the guy. You and I are competitive individuals. You get it. Like the machismo comes out, but you've got to know where you are.
I'm not trying to make him look bad. He's young. He got excited. I totally get it. But so that happens, and then we go to the bottom of the first. And if you remember, Max Yell, our ace, kind of got off to a slow start that game. I think he got to 20-some pitches too, gave up a run at the bottom of the first, and I kind of got a little nervous there. I was like, okay, this isn't a great start.
Well, especially after he didn't get out of the first in game.
Yeah,
game
and
2
I kind of had flashbacks to that. And then I believe it was the next inning when we scored 5, right? And yeah, because the pitcher didn't last more than an inning.
Because he didn't record an out in the second.
Yeah,
he got the infamous 1+ in the scorecard.
And once we made it 5-1, I think we hit back-to-back home runs. They pulled the pitcher, and I was with my buddy Chaz in Houston, who's a WVU fan. We were both celebrating. I was like, "This is over. It's over." Like that had to be so demoralizing for Cal Poly. Like,
well, especially because
your ace on the mound, you take a 1-0 lead, and all of a sudden this team just starts mashing the ball. Top of the second, you pull your ace, and I think they just went. That was probably our best shot.
Well, and that was the sentiment of Cal Poly fans on the message boards was, well, we spent 7 innings on the bullpen yesterday.
Yeah.
And kind of Mountaineer fans are like,
I don't think either pitcher did they pitched a total of 5 innings, and they had 2 studs.
Right, because that's their head coach, which has been, is I believe the program record holder for wins, been there 20-something years. Like he's not a slouch, well-known guy in the baseball world, and they're not a terrible baseball program. Ozzie Smith,
no, they're usually in it. Yeah.
Legend, they don't have a tournament resume, but like they've got some guys that you've heard of in their history, and it was just like, okay, we're glad. Their fan base quickly went from like, we can spoil the party to, it was nice to be here.
Yeah, well, it went up. It was 5-1. They pulled that pitcher, and I said to my butt, and I was a little overzealous, I admit, in the moment, but I was like, "This is over." I don't think they have the offense. They don't have the bullpen to slow our offense down, and I don't think their offense can keep up. And that's exactly what happened. So, one thing I want to touch up on, just back to just how this program has gone the last 14 years. When you look at it, like it's incredible because it's what you want when you're basically starting a program from the ground up. You have small goals, So when Randy Mazey took over, I think everyone was like, let's make the tournament, for the first time in forever, which by the time we got there, it had been 21 years since we made the tournament. But it took him time, and I actually forgot how those first 4 seasons of him, it wasn't that great. What I remember was the end of year 1, that team got hot and almost got to the Big 12 championship game and had a lot of studs returning, including Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, Harrison Musgrave. And I was really looking forward to that 2014 team. And that 2014 team just wasn't very good. Fell flat on their face at the end of the year. Started off pretty well. And I think was
right. I remember, the momentum of the new stadium. Everybody was showing up. I was there, at the first game. It was like, okay, like we got the new stadium, like we got a team now, like recruiting's going to be easier, like everything's set up, like, okay, maybe we can turn this around quicker than we thought.
And so that second year, we start off pretty well, had the momentum from the end of year one, and that team just ran out of gas at the end of the year. Lost, I think we got swept in our last two conference series, went 1-2 in the Big 12.
We lost eight out of the last 10 or something.
Yeah, it was rough. And then the next year, like all those guys that we were excited about in 2014 left for the pros because they were mostly juniors and seniors. And then that 2015 team was a rebuilding team. I think we were 500. And then the 2016 team was a slow start. But again, that team got scorching hot at the end of the year, got to the Big 12 championship. And that's when fucking Lukenbaker hit the 3-run home run in I believe the top of the ninth in the Big 12 championship game. I can still remember that. Like we were on the cusp of making the tournament that year. And then we ended up being, I believe, like the first team out or like one of the first 4 out or whatever. So that was 4 years. But in that moment, I remember thinking it in that Big 12 championship. I'm like, it feels like we're there. And then the next year was when we finally
can compete. Like,
yep. And that next year we finally got through. Now I didn't have any expectations of that team doing anything special. I didn't think we'd go to Omaha. I didn't think I would have been happy with a super regional and going down to Winston-Salem. And if I remember correctly, we got to the regional final and just didn't have the horses to match up with them.
We ran out of arms in that one in a hurry.
Yeah. But again, it was like, we did it. Now what's the next goal? Well, the next goal, let's host a regional. 2 years later, with Alec Manoa, top 12 pick in the draft, we host a regional in Morgantown. That one also hurt because we lose to Duke in the second game, go to the losers bracket, play A&M. I didn't expect to win that game because it's an SEC program. I figured they would have more talent than we did. And we were leading by what? 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth or something. And A&M walked it off with a grand slam to win. Just unreal. I was like, everyone was so nervous. I was like, he's not going to hit a grand slam here. And then the very next pitch, you could hear it off the bat. I was like, oh shit.
Well, and that was the same moment. When we're talking game 7 of this year's regional, I'm on a text, just texting back and forth with, South Carolina fan. I was hoping they were going to, poach Coach Saban's. End up hiring the coach at Coastal, but he's watching the game with his son at his house, and game's 5-1. It's like, okay, like West Virginia has somehow they've done it. No outs in the 8th, and he's like, yeah. I was like, we turned it off, and I said, this is West Virginia athletics. I was like, my direct text in was, you are about to see in the next 3 to 4 outs the most fresh things that you have ever seen, because this is not how this goes.
Unfortunately, I didn't get any of that. Your microphone cut out.
You hear me now?
A little bit, but it's not great.
There we go.
Anyway, I'll talk while you get that sorted. 2019, we host that regional and we lose, but it was like, okay, like again, that's another thing we accomplished. Now, then after that, like the next year was COVID, so you kind of throw that out. And then 21 wasn't great. 22, we missed the tournament again. And I remember at that point being like, have we lost steam? Because then the next year we did make the tournament, but that was a very disappointing outing in the tournament. We lost to Indiana, I believe, to start things off. We beat Ball State, I think, in the second game, and then just got railroaded by Kentucky in the third game. I think the final score was 10-0, and it felt like 30-0. It felt like every inning Kentucky had the bases loaded. Yeah, and like we just kept getting out of jams, but then like they kept scoring like 2 runs, 1 run here, 2 runs here, and it was 10-0. Could have easily been 20-0. And I remember thinking in that moment, I'm like, have we lost that momentum? Have we lost steam? Is this all we are? Like, if it is, I'm not complaining, but it feels like this is all it is. All this program's going to be. And then the next year or that offseason, Randy Mazey announces 2024 is going to be his last year, to which I was bummed. And then finally that year, oddly enough, same as what's going on this year with Omaha. We break through and get to the super regional, but it came in a year where we were in a regional with Arizona, who was 2 and done, lost the first game to Grand Canyon, and then lost to Dallas Baptist in the second game in the losers bracket. So they were done, and we beat Dallas Baptist. All of a sudden, Arizona gets eliminated, and we're like, holy shit, we have a chance to do something special here. And we did. Got a fortunate draw to get there, but we did get to the super regionals for the first time ever. And then we get North Carolina. And I was weirdly, I don't know about you, I was weirdly confident in that series. I was like, I think we can give them a shot.
That series, because it felt oddly similar looking back at it now to the way that, obviously a completely different pedigree program. But Carolina had a couple of horses at the top of that rotation.
Yeah.
Bullpen had one, maybe two guys that were they really relied on to eat up innings. It was like, okay, if we can get this, and I remember even thinking in game 2 after a while, I was like, all right, game 1 they had one of the pitchers of the year in the ACC. I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to lose one because he was, I think his ERA was under 1.5 for the year. Just stud. And it was like,
I think that was game 2. Because we barely, I think we scored 1 run in that game.
I think that was like, if we can get this to a game 3 somehow, maybe we can mess around with this.
But I was weirdly confident we were going to give them a run for their money, and we did, even though we got swept. But both games, if you remember, came down to the bottom of the 9th. Uh-huh. The first one, we had a 6-2 lead, blew it, typical WVU. But I was just like, man, that's a shame. Second game, I think we were down 2-0, had a bit of a rally going in the 9th inning, just came up short. And I think we lost 2-1. I could be wrong, but I lost by a total of, I think, 3 runs. And then the next year, baton passes to Sabins. We have a great year and then get to a super regional again, but in a totally different way, where instead of a fortunate draw, we had to go through Clemson. We had to go through Kentucky twice. And in a game in the regional final against Kentucky that still took years, that I think to this day took years off my life, and that 13-12 back and forth crazy game. And we get to the supers and we're just overmatched against LSU. That was one I was
that's when everybody knew. Nobody, like, I don't even, honestly, still looking back, I don't know how LSU was so far down the
That's what my brother said.
List, because that team, like, everybody knew, like, they were I believe they were the 6, if I recall correctly, maybe the 4.
Clemson was the 11.
Yeah. That was the second best, if not the best team in the country for most of the year.
Yeah, I remember my brother saying, like, okay, we are in Clemson's regional. Okay, well, who's the 6? And he looked up, he's like, LSU? How? And so anyway, I didn't really have any expectations against LSU, and it didn't go great. But then, so, the goal was, after we hosted that regional in 2019, was, well, how can we get to a super regional? And we did that. Then after LSU, it was, we got to start hosting a regional. And then it was, how do we get to Omaha? And we killed 2 birds with 1 stone this year, hosting a super regional. Granted, we had a favorable draw, but we got there. And then now we're in Omaha. Just it's been incredible. Like, it's been incremental. Like, make the tournament. Let's host a regional. Oh, and then somewhere in there, let's get to the tournament in back-to-back years for the first time since the 60s.
Yeah.
Then now it's 4 years in a row. But then how do we get to a super regional? Did that. How do we host a super regional? Did that. How do we get to Omaha? Did that. Now we're like, how do we win a national championship? Depending on how this trip to Omaha goes.
Right. Well, so I think with this draw in Omaha, we can exercise some demons. We got North Carolina on our half of the draw.
I wanted another crack at them.
And
might not go well, but I want another crack.
When you have Ole Miss, who's arguably one of the hottest teams in the tournament, still left, hasn't lost a game yet. But that's the other matchup.
Not? Yeah, I don't think
they have. They swept. I forget their regional, but they swept Auburn on the Plains. Auburn didn't look great in the regional. But those games in Auburn were competitive, but they weren't. They were competitive, but not close. If you know what I mean. And so I think it's where they have, like, we're kind of first timers game, which is, it's kind of unique that two first-time teams somebody's getting their first win in Omaha by default. And we'll see how that goes. And I've talked about this compared to the regional setup, which is you're fitting every team. You've got 7 games in 3 days. At 3.5 days, very compact schedule. Omaha, because there are 2 regionals being hosted in the same building, because there is one field at Charles Schwab, you have a minimum of a day off in between every time you play in Omaha until you get to the finals. So I think that really sets up to get the better teams, because I felt better in a super regional, obviously, where you have one team to focus on, you have one series. Coach Saban's mentioned it in interviews.
This concept of a regional, like where it's a 1-game scenario and you just take it game by game instead of like you're guaranteed 2, possibly 3 games against the same opponent. It does not favor us, I don't think, as much as like it did against Cal Poly. Cal Poly, I was like, I think we're taking this within 3 for sure. Like if he gets to a game 3, I think we got it.
Well, and Coach Saban's mentioned it in some of his interviews, both before and after the Supers. He said, the regional, and that's where sometimes it creates May Madness a little bit, but you have to throw the playbook out of the way that you have coached the first 60 games of the year, the way you have to coach a regional.
Totally different. I was trying to explain it to a buddy of mine.
It's not because you have to, especially when you drop to the losers bracket like we did, you've got a doubleheader that you have to win. You're playing 18 innings. You have to win it. You have to win both. And then, by the way, your season's on the line after you sweep a doubleheader the next day while the other team was watching y'all from the hotel balcony. And then you get to a super regional and Coach Sabins goes, look, you can go back to the way that you've coached every weekend since February. You've got 3 days. I'm throwing, Chance Cole game 1. I'm going to throw, Max Yale on game 2. I've got bullpen guys. And that was the feeling really, some of the more level-headed Mountaineer fans thinking that we wouldn't blow a 16-run lead or even a 6-run lead after the second inning was, guys, we got Chance Cole through 7 innings yesterday. We threw in like one of our weaker bullpen, not one of our stud bullpen guys in game 1. Like we have every horse in the stable. Even if one of our studs comes out of the bullpen and gets in a tight spot, we got 4. Like
I told my friend, he was like, who do you think goes today? And I said, I think it's definitely Gale and Korn. And we'll see how it goes. If it's a tight game, obviously he's going to throw every big arm he has. I was like, even if it's a blowout, I think he's going to throw every top arm he has. Like he is going to ruin or take their soul, to quote Rich Rod. So anyway, let's talk about Omaha here. Our side of the bracket is the more favorable side. On the right side is all SEC teams. On the right or on the left with us, it's West Virginia, Troy, North Carolina, and Ole Miss. I don't want to count out Troy. I think if Mountaineer fans are counting out Troy, I think they're being foolish. But I do expect to win that game. If we don't, it'll be pretty disappointing. Like to get all the way to Omaha, get another favorable draw with Troy, only to lose.
Well, and Troy even in their post-game celebration was honestly kind of in that. Wait, we did it? Like Mountaineer fans are like, we did it, but we expected to do it. Troy fans are like, holy shit, we hosted a super regional. That wasn't supposed to happen. We won a super regional because you got somehow to play Little Rock. But if it wasn't in the name, most people probably couldn't identify their baseball stadium. And it's like, okay, like they got the most favorable of favorable draws after they take out Florida, which was one of the favorites for the national championship.
Don't count that. Don't count Troy out. Beating Florida is no joke.
So they can swing the bat. That's a good offensive team, and if we get in some tight spots, and I think it'll be really interesting to see. And I think because it was even a worrisome matchup for us in game 1 because Cal Poly was one of the best teams in the country against the sinker.
Yeah,
and Chance Cole is a sinker baller through and through. and we had 7 innings out of Jansen Cole. And I think that's what really flipped it for guys like you and me. It was like, all right, it was best on best that didn't really look like it was going to, on paper, it shouldn't have gone as well as it did for Jansen Cole. And I think that was what really flipped it. And I haven't had a chance to deep dive into Troy's, deep metrics as far as who they do against what. But they're a good offensive team. They've got enough pitching. They got enough pitching to come out of the losers bracket and take out Florida and Gainesville twice. Like they didn't miss on UCLA like Cal Poly did. Like they took it to the Gators in the Florida Heat. Like they can handle it.
Yeah, but I'm not taking them lightly, but we should win. I think Troy's luck will eventually run out. I don't think they've really faced pitching as good as ours. And I will say Florida, while it's Florida, like they were down to their third or fourth arm. At that point, really, it's anyone's game if the bats get hot in college baseball. They're going to face either Cole or Yale. I heard an argument for Yale from a pundit at the Daily Wire. I can't think of the show's name now. Crane and Company. He made the pitch to go with Yale. That way, if we win, put out Cole against North Carolina or Ole Miss. And then if we win that, then we get Yale potentially again for Wednesday night, because I think the way it goes is both games Friday, then both games Sunday. Then the losers would play Monday or Tuesday, I believe. And then the winners get extra time off. So I get that. A part of me thinks Saban's is just going to go with what's been working, which is Cole first, Yale second. What do you think?
No, I think that's, the expanded schedule. Because I think what you also want to play for a little bit, you don't want to, talk yourself too far out, but spacing yourself out to, do you really want to try and throw Yale 3 times in 10 days? If you make it, if you somehow mess around and get to the 20th and you're still playing, is Yale coming off, if Yale's pitching on say Friday and then you want them to pitch on Wednesday, the finals series starts on Saturday. So do you want Yale to be iffy for game 2 or game 1 of a finals series because you're trying to throw them too many times? And the same argument can be then made for Jansen Cole, but I think Cole comes back quicker, just the type of arm that he is, where if you need a guy to go 3 times in 10 days, I think it sets up better to be Jansen Cole than it does Max Yale, just the way that they attack their style of pitching.
Who do you think comes out of our side of the bracket?
I think it's, and it's the only seeded team there. I don't want to cast them aside, but I think just the way that the bracket sets up, it's us or Ole Miss. Because I think
really,
Ole Miss,
you don't think North Carolina?
No, I think Ole Miss is going to, they have looked, they pitched great. I watched them, watched their full series with Auburn almost every inning. Their pitching is as good as it's looked all year, and they can swing it with anybody. I think they're averaging close to 10 runs a game, if not more, in the tournament. Came out of a pretty stout regional without much sweat. And so I think they're as good as they've looked. They've been to Omaha. They're the most recent national champion in the field. So they're members of that coaching staff that, it's the same coaching staff from 2022. So they've been there, done that. There are probably guys that maybe were freshmen on that team that have seen it. So I think that sets up well for them, just the way that they're playing. And then you throw us in there, not as a homerism, just, if we get through Troy, then
one game.
You've got to beat us twice. And like we've shown to, and we've got through Kentucky, which was the only other team from the 2020, the last 3 years of the 24 teams to make it to Omaha. Only one team has appeared twice, and that is North Carolina out of the last 3 seasons. But Kentucky was one of the other teams that has been to Omaha the most recently. So it's like we beat a program that had been there recently and had to do it twice, yes, in front of our home fans in a very raucous atmosphere. But I think, you've got teams that know how to handle themselves. And North Carolina is just like that odd team in for me. Like they did have to go.
There, like I talked about this with some friends. I was like, North Carolina's always in Omaha, and they can never seem to get to the championship. Like, and I don't know what kind of draws they've had. Like maybe they've just played SEC teams or whatever. But like, I just don't know what to make of them. Like, I don't think they're bad. I think they're talented. I just don't know if they're that much more talented.
Even
they got
us. I mean, they got it.
Or even Ole Miss.
Well, they got a hot team in USC, and they're super in Chapel Hill, and USC, not in the last 20 years, but historically is the best college baseball program. Most national championships. So you've got a team with program pedigree, not recent success, and USC was as hot as any team in the tournament coming into the Super
Game one against UNC.
Game one, and it really wasn't as close as the scoreboard said it was, and I mean, it was for the first 5 or innings, but then they blew it open, and the last couple of innings were pretty slow for them. And so I think it was like, okay, you had all the pressure to come back the way that West Virginia did in Game 6 and Game 7 of the regionals, but it was still, it's like, okay, how much did that take out of you having to deal with that pressure in supers that the other teams on your side of the bracket didn't?
It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to enjoy it. I am going to Omaha, it looks like. So I originally said I wasn't going to go. My dad and brother talked me into it. And our former classmate of mine, graduate of the SM program, Jerry McLeaver, shout out to him, works for the NCAA, scored 2 tickets, had an extra. He asked me on Monday or yesterday, we're recording this Tuesday, so on Monday, if I wanted to go, wanted to use the ticket, and I said, I don't think I can make it work. And then brother and dad talked me into it, and I said, hey, is that ticket still available? And he said, yep. And I was like, I'm taking it then. But it's only for Friday, so we got to look for Sunday tickets. But I'm going. It's going to be close to a 15-hour drive from Texas to Omaha, but I'm looking forward to it. I hope we can put up a good show. As much as I would love to win it all, like I would be fine with just being like getting one win, and just we'll play it by ear from there. If we go 1 and 2, I'm not going to be upset.
One win, look competitive in the other 2. Honestly, even get to your play out of the winners bracket a little bit. Lose like in Omaha, you're playing good teams. Like we lose to North Carolina and Ole Miss. Like
I'll be honest, like I don't see any reason why we can't get to the championship game or championship series.
Yeah, no, and I think you've seen that from.
I don't say that lightly as a West Virginia fan, but I'm watching us.
I've seen that, and the pundits like us. That's like they've kind of like, okay, like there are some people that pick Cal Poly. They're like, no, like that team, like the one thing that ESPN even said, and ESPN's checkered history with supporting West Virginia athletics on broadcasts. The baseball guys at college baseball coverage said West Virginia has bats. They have hitting. They've got pitching. They've got everything except for been there, done that. That's the only thing they don't have. And really, does that matter?
Yeah. Like I said, why not? Like, I don't think there's a huge gap between North Carolina and Ole Miss and us. Like, I think I think any 3 could meet whoever comes out of the other side.
And that's and the other side is going to be a dog fight, no pun intended, with Georgia on that side. And it's Georgia takes a lot of flack for the way that their stadium plays. But they've shown that they can win on the road throughout the year. I was
impressed with Texas. They look good in regional play, and then super regional, they look crisp, I thought.
Yeah, no, and when you talk about been there, done that, Texas, ended their program record 3 years without going to Omaha. So you can talk about somebody that's been there, and Coach Schlossnagle, turncoat from TCU,
and A&M.
Like they've they've got what they need. And Oregon was a decent ball club. Oregon put it to UCLA a couple of times at the end of the year. So it's not like they, some of those two of those six losses, I believe, that they had coming in, or maybe one, and the third game of that series was close in LA. But they beat UCLA at UCLA before St. Mary's thought it was cool.
Yeah. All right. I think we've said all there needs to be said about the baseball program in Omaha. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get to Brendan Sorsby, the negative topic of conversation on this podcast. So for those that aren't familiar, I haven't looked into too many details of his history with gambling, but this has been a story for the last 2 to 3 months in college athletics. He was ruled ineligible, I believe, by the NCAA. Correct me if I'm wrong. About
as recently
gambling
again as 3 days ago.
And he's appealed it, I believe, twice, has been rejected both times. And all of a sudden, Monday, a Lubbock County judge says, nope, he's eligible. And
so I have
set the college football world by on fire.
So I have a little more of the details on this than you do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually the numbers guy. So more than $90,000 total.
I saw as many as 900 bets. I didn't know if that was accurate or not.
Yeah, it's 900. It was roughly about $10 a bet, over 900 bets. And across multiple, it was not his accounts. It was brother-in-laws. It was buddies. It was as much as you could try to coat and cover tracks as you could possibly do. As many as 40 of the bets were on Indiana football while he was a member of the roster. I don't give a damn if you were on the field. I don't give a damn if you were holding a clipboard or if you're the water girl. I don't care. And so, and including what has only come out recently, multiple bets on Indiana to lose games. So we can throw the nonsense of, I picked my team to win. I'm Pete Rose. No. Done. And so what Texas Tech has tried to, and I sent you a screenshot from a Texas Tech donor that was posting some things today. So there is a momentous movement among the common sense members of the Texas Tech fan base, because what they ultimately did, and Texas Tech fans that are delusional have latched on to this label because you have to understand the way that legal terminology is thrown around. The initial judge that was assigned to the case, I forget his name, was a Texas Tech graduate. He saw the kerfuffle that came out of an Ole Miss grad ruling Trinidad Chambliss eligible and did not want to join the parade of circuses that has been local judges in the NCAA over the last 6 to 18 months. So he said, you know what, I'm going to do the legal common sense thing. Go, I'm a Texas Tech grad. All the pictures came out of him doing this with the mascots, a big donor to the athletic department. Said, I'm going to recuse myself. They'll assign a different judge. I've spent some time in and around Tarrant County, in the judicial world, and they pulled a retired judge from Tarrant County, which is roughly a couple hundred miles.
Isn't it Fort Worth?
It's Fort Worth County. Yeah. They just don't label it Fort Worth. But Tarrant County's courthouse sits a couple of miles east of the stockyards there in Fort Worth, and it was a retired judge, Houston graduate, not a Texas Tech graduate. Was assigned that way very direct, intentionally. Comes over into the case, so he is labeled, as a legal sense, as a Lubbock County judge because he is deciding a case within Lubbock County, Texas, but is not himself a Lubbock resident. So how a Lubbock non-resident makes what I put this, to even my boss in the sport management world, the most mind-blowingly stupid judicial decision that has been rendered in the United States in the last several years, and I don't care who you have ever voted for in this country. The fact that somebody can say that with confidence, and the confidence that I'm saying it right now, in the way that judicial decisions have been handled on both sides of the political aisle and in the non-political arena over the last decade is shocking, because this takes the, not college sports, the concept of sports to its very core. And I put this in a message to somebody today. If we don't have this, if this goes through and Brennan Sorsby sees a field for Texas Tech this year, remember Taylor, I forget his last name, the famous when U.S. Soccer lost to Trinidad and Tobago to not qualify for the World Cup, and he goes, "What are we doing?" for like 90 seconds on ESPN.
I was literally about to say, "What are we doing with this rule?"
Like that video just put a Big 12 or an NCAA T-shirt on him with AI and play that on ESPN for the next 3 weeks, because that is everyone except for, and I'm not going to blast the entirety of the Texas Tech fan base. I'm not well liked in many sections of Lubbock online, as far as I can tell, over the years. But the majority of that fan base has some degree of common sense and understands how mind-blowingly asinine and absurd that this is. But they have been bought and paid for by one man. And I have lost any and all respect I ever had for Kirby Hocutt, what I thought was one of the better athletic administrators in the country. Cody Campbell is running, and Texas Tech fans will agree, some of them will agree with you, not the ones that are typically spending a lot of time online. Texas Tech fans that have common sense in their brains. Cody Campbell is running this university with his ego single-handedly into the ground.
I assume that's one of their top donors, or the top donor.
That is the Board of Regents president and top donor.
Yeah.
Oil magnate, net worth roughly $5 billion between oil and private investments world. But he is the individual personally, he's confirmed this, personally on the hook for Brennan Sorsby's $5 million salary for this upcoming season. So he is going to die on this hill, and nothing came out of it. And the most nothing burger of nothing burger statements that Brett Yormark has ever put out came out this afternoon to say, like, we're having open and honest dialogue, and we talked all day.
I saw that.
You and I both know that meeting was probably about 2 or 3 hours long.
I'm sure there was screaming.
Kirby Hocutt did not speak. I guarantee you, he sat there and just said, "I'm gonna eat it." And everybody else, because you and I know, especially you being in the media world a little more than I am, people don't usually there's a lot of anonymous sources in athletics at every level. When you have the athletic director of Kansas State, a Big 12 institution, who willingly puts his name behind the phrase, "It's fucking bullshit."
Was that who it was? Okay, I didn't see that. I saw the quote. I didn't see who it was from.
No, it's the athletic director at Kansas State, mind you, not on the Texas Tech football schedule because we have too many teams to play everybody like we used to. Not on their 2026 fall schedule, unless both make it to Arlington. But you then have two institutions so far, likely about to be 2 or 3 conferences that have said, this is the core of our entire existence if this goes this way. Nebraska and Georgia, both their athletic directors, so I don't have them by name, but I would happily buy them a beer if I'm ever in either of those towns in the next couple of years, sent department-wide messages to every single member of their staff, in the coaching ranks at least, and said, if you have Texas Tech on your schedule, let me know. They should know that as an athletic director, but it's a lot of things going on. If you are talking to Texas Tech about scheduling them, let your administrator know, and you're not talking to them anymore. And if you were thinking about scheduling Texas Tech in water polo, you are not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else needs to be said. This is a total joke. What happened yesterday? Now you went as far as to say yesterday that it took you out of the high of getting to Omaha. It did not have that effect on me. Most of my timeline was still what Mountaineers are in Omaha on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But when I saw that ruling, I immediately quote tweeted it and said, "Oh, fuck off." Like, there's no way this is happening. Like, it is pretty evident that he was betting on his teams. He was betting on them to lose. I even heard he was betting on like the unders for passing yards for himself. Oh, we're just going to let him play. Pete Rose that can't get a spot in the Hall of Fame because he bet on games. The NFL shut down, I believe it was Calvin Ridley for a year, and a couple other players got suspended for betting on, I believe, college games. And they were like, "What's the big deal?" If you can't, and people were outraged over that. If you can't understand a zero tolerance policy, and honestly, this is on the institutions for embracing legalized gambling. I'm not saying it's wrong, but when you embrace it, like, this is what's going to happen, and you start taking money from these people and these companies,
and you have 18 to 23-year-olds in your building,
and you have young kids who, yes, this is going to happen. There needs to be a zero tolerance policy. I really, really hope the NCAA nuts up here and says, like, absolutely not. Like, you are in the right. I saw someone say this. You are in the right, and you're still fumbling this. Everyone's on your side.
But
put your foot down and say, this isn't going to happen.
When's the last time that all of college sports, everybody, like, normally it's like, oh, screw the SEC.
Area. Yeah, exactly. Everyone's
every single person outside of Lubbock County, Texas, is like, what? And to tell you, like, there are guys that hear things way more on the gray area of like what's true and what's not than you or I do. Pete Thamel, the leading reporter for anything in college football for ESPN, went on Pat McAfee's show this week when they were talking about this just in the last day or two after the ruling, and said, I was in a meeting. I had to check that this wasn't a meme account when I saw it. Pete Thamel didn't even believe it. And that man here that's made up every day. Like, if Pete Thamel doesn't think it's real, and people that read legal briefings, because you and I, neither of us have a JD, but we've read our fair share of legal documents in our time.
We took a law class.
4 pages. People that read Tarrant County legal documents, Lubbock County legal documents, said he bought the argument that, and even I found a Texas Tech fan who has passed the Texas bar, or maybe it was a Utah fan that has passed the Texas bar, now lives in Texas, that said, I read this stuff all day. Like, I work in trade secret law. So, like, I deal with stuff that's like on the gray area of a lot of stuff.
We might have seen the same account.
This doesn't pass this. He just bought it's like, for them to say you have to show irreparable harm, because I had this argument with some Texas Tech fans who seem to think that the Lubbock Inn will be able to sue Kansas State if they don't play them in basketball for lost revenue, which is just the dumbest thing I've read this week. To show irreparable harm, which was Jeffrey Kessler, noted Thorne, and lead plaintiff on the Ed O'Bannon case, legal counsel, who had just seems to have made it his life's work to bend the NCAA over the table. That his entire argument was, oh, he'll be, and I sent this to you as a meme account.
I looked at that. Yeah.
That he, the entire logic, they said, all right, here's a summary of the legal case. And it's like meant to be, comedic, but it's like honestly really a summary of a 6-hour legal case, where it said, okay, you bet on your team, you bet against your own team, you did all these things that are like against all the rules. And it goes, well, okay, what's your argument? Well, he'll be really sad. That's the argument. That he will be sad? I don't care. Go drink a beer. That'll make you less sad. Go drink a fucking beer. That's it. Cody Campbell will buy your ass a beer. Go get ready for the supplemental draft, son. You got 2 weeks. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, this can't happen. And I saw the NCAA filed an appeal. Might as well wipe your ass with it. It's not going to go anywhere because
so
it's scheduled for February.
Here's where that could get interesting because they filed, I always remember, in a much different situation. When we talk about the NCAA's ability to enforce any rule whatsoever, the NCAA they've done nothing consistently over the last 20 years when it comes to their rule set. This is the one thing. So Trinidad Chambliss was like medical red shirts, blah, blah, blah. His case was honestly, horseshit too. But
yeah, his was also horseshit.
But at least it was like, okay, like it's a red shirt, like there's some gray area kind of nonsensy stuff that you can get around some legal mumbo jumbo with. I still don't think Trinidad Chambliss should be eligible, but there's a whole, that's fine. Moving on. But when it comes to this, it's like, okay, this is the one thing NCAA has been consistent on. How are we getting around this? But in the Trinidad Chambliss case where this becomes relevant is the NCAA in trying to get that case undone is they filed an accelerated appeal in the federal courts in Mississippi. And that appeal, because Trinidad's case was, again, probably set for mid-football season, end of football season. Courts are notorious for being 6 to 10 months out, if not longer. Trinidad's case, the appeal was heard within a month because it was filed as an accelerated appeal. And that's what the NCAA has done in this case. Slight monkey wrench into this. People that know Texas really well and look one step ahead, they go, okay, when this gets appealed, where does it go? That is the 7th Judicial Circuit of Appeals in Amarillo, Texas, which has 4 people on it. I don't know how you make legal decisions with 4 people, because 4 divided by 2 is 2, which means there's an
I would imagine
number.
You need 3 out of 4.
Right, but that's just, we'll save arguing over how stupid the 7th Judicial Circuit of Appeals having an even number of people on it is. That's fine. I looked this up because I got really curious. One of the 4 of them has a degree from outside of the state of Texas. That's the newest member of the appeals court that she just got appointed in March, who was an Arkansas undergraduate. But where this is going is all 4 members graduated from a single law school, which happens to be located in Lubbock, Texas. And there is but one only university in Lubbock, Texas. And I think we both know which one that is. So you can't exactly recuse the entire 7th Judicial Circuit. And now you're asking not 1, which recused themselves, but 4 Texas Tech graduates to agree to do the right thing. And we've seen how that's going to go. So I think really the only thing that this goes is if Yormick stones up, and because, it's not the inmates running the asylum, it's everybody but one inmate who's trying to stop a prison riot. Like, that's where we're at. Is you have 15 of 16 people in that call that I'm sure they went around the room and goes, does anybody else have anything to say before Kirby hangs up? And it was like, oh, yeah, hold on, I thought of something else. Like, that's how that call went today.
He took it on the chin for 2 to 3 hours from every single AD on that call.
Yeah, if Kirby Hocutt said more than hello everyone today, he said too much.
Oh gosh, this is such a disaster, and it's set such a bad precedent for college athletics. You cannot have local judges.
If you want to have federal legislation, this is how you get it. Like, do these local judges not understand that if you don't want Donald Trump and everybody else and Nick Saban and everybody messing in your local college football team, you don't do this. Because this is how you get Congress doesn't do fucking anything. So if you want Congress to do anything,
you go ahead with Congress. Go ahead.
Yeah, because Congress has avoided every single opportunity to wade into this pool of messy diarrhea that is the NCAA. That if you want, like, you're taking the entire concept of sports. We said at the beginning of this, the entire concept of sports is gone. Period. And if you want Congress to do, if you want to find a way to get 535 members of Congress to finally do a damn thing, this is how you do that. Because every single person that gives a single lick about sports is mind blown that this is about to occur.
I had a thought. Now I lost it. Oh, I know what it was. What are the chances, do you think, whether it be your Mark stepping up and saying, pulling a Big Ten in like 2020, where they basically changed the rules to that? If you remember, they had a shortened season, and they were like, top two teams, whatever the tiebreakers were, would go to the Big Ten championship. And it looked like Indiana was going to go to the Big Ten championship that year instead of Ohio State, because if you remember, they beat Ohio State that year. And then the Big Ten kind of the week before was like, actually, we're going to change this and go by, I think it was the committee's rankings, maybe. I don't remember. But gave Ohio State their end.
Right, they made sure that it was,
What are the chances of your Mark doing something similar, where it's like every game you start with him is basically an L, and you're not going to if you are going to play him, if you play him for a down, you're not competing in the Big 12 championship. And then on top of that, what are the chances that the committee holds this against Texas Tech? Because I think they absolutely will, if this continues.
That was a discussion that got tossed around on the college football subreddit this afternoon. That pretty much everyone.
I don't see a scenario where they're okay with this.
Well, so they were like, here's the three groups of people that you need to pay attention to that aren't the Big 12. One of them technically is the AP voters and the coaches poll, but there's no rules to those. We've seen some of the most hilarious ballots. You and I have read through them. Like, why is Troy the number 3 team in the country? It's like they don't even pay attention. So the AP and the coaches voters, they can just ignore Texas Tech because they even have a football program for this year. The college football playoff under the 2026 fall rule set, because they change them every single year. This year, the Big 12 conference champion can be the 105th ranked team in the country and is automatically in the playoff because they are the Big 12 champion. Because we've decided that we can't have 2 Power 6 or non-Power 5 teams like we did this past year, and because we got to make sure Notre Dame gets in the playoff with their 10-win schedule and losing to the 2 teams that actually have football teams. So you have that, but that's where Yormick has to step up, and we decide what are the rules that qualify you. And I don't think that you can, just the Texas Tech fans that want to be the whiniest are like, everybody brush up on the Sherman Antitrust Act because everybody's colluding against Texas Tech if they make sure.
Give me a fucking break, dude.
Sit down. Any Texas Tech fans that watch this video, sit down. You're done. You don't get an opinion for the rest of football, period. Until the sport doesn't exist, I don't want to hear from you if you think that this is okay. And so what you then have to, to be afraid of that or finagle around that is you can't make a rule that specifically targets Sorsby. You can't be like, oh, if Brandon Sorsby plays, it doesn't count, because there's no way to, no lawyer's going to let you write that. So you have to work around that in such a way that's what several people have said is the way that you can get this through legally is he's got his NCAA situation going on, and people are like, well, wait, remember the NBA thing with Chauncey Billups? Like, Chauncey Billups is facing decades in prison, remember, for doing this. They're like, why is Sorsby worried about a 2 or 12 game NCAA suspension before he becomes an undrafted free agent in the NFL? Because that's what people don't seem to understand. It's like, Sorsby's okay. He's not
he's not that great.
He's fine. But it's not like he's not a first round. He wasn't going to be a first round draft pick, or he wouldn't be on Texas Tech's roster this year because he was draft eligible, if I recall.
Yes.
And so what you then have to do is he's actually under investigation for money laundering in the state of Ohio. So now that's Yormik's out. He is under federal investigation for interstate money laundering while he was at UC.
Good night. This is ridiculous. I didn't know all this.
Right. Yeah. The money laundering case came to my eyeballs in the last 24 hours since this hit the fan. And I'm like, oh, so like, because people are like, wait, where's law enforcement all of this? Because like it's his brother-in-law's account, it's his buddies, it's his mom's. Like he had everybody's account but his because he knew that and people are like, well, are we boycotting Cincinnati and Indiana? Indiana put him on a program and said, we're taking your damn phone. UC said, we're checking you every week. And because it was his brother-in-law's account, it was mommy's, it was his, his buddy down the streets, it was his roommate that wasn't on the football team if he had one. He had everything covered so that when he walked into the compliance office, said, here's my phone, I haven't bet anything this week. And like that's the only thing you can hold against UC is that they didn't try hard at the investigation, but you're asking a $50,000 a year salaried, compliance person to become a federal money laundering detective.
They're not going to do it.
And they're not going to do it. They've got enough things going on.
And I'm not holding that against them. Like we have things with our job. No. Like I'm not doing that. I'm not. That's too much work.
Not even too much work. It's like it's above my. I'm not an FBI agent.
Right. Yeah. That too. Yeah. The whole thing's a disaster. And really all it is this donor making sure his investment comes through. It has nothing to do with he's not that good of a player. It's the investment. I invested $5 million in this guy. I don't want to lose it.
Right. Because as Cody Campbell, the donor in question / Board of Regents president, has said. How's
that not a conflict of interest there? How are you on the Board of Regents and a top donor? I don't know.
Right. He runs their collective. Like he single-handedly funds their athletic department.
Right.
Like, and even better, because you'll love this when we talk about Congress, to circle back to that, one of the leading proponents of the Save College Sports Act being written by Ted Cruz and others, who has been to D.C. several times in the last 6 weeks? Texas Tech Board of Regents President Cody Campbell. He is arguing against himself. I'm not joking.
My God, college athletics.
He's arguing to solve this very problem. At Congress.
College athletics, man. It just can't.
Good night.
It can't get out of it. It can't. It's not even get out of its own way. It's so corrupt.
Well, honestly, like I had this thought briefly in my head last night, reading through all of this. So it was like, because they've talked about like the Super League, the Big Ten, the SEC, breaking away from the NCAA. And I'm like, you know what? The NCAA has been shown if they can't enforce the gambling rules, for Christ's sakes, then we don't have an NCAA. Nope. How hard would it be for us to just pretend the NCAA doesn't exist anymore?
That's
people
happening.
People file bankruptcy, keep their house, keep their car, keep their job. How do we do that with the NCAA and we just say this whole thing and start over? How do we do that? Because that's about where we need to be.
There are no rules. The NCAA is just letting them do whatever. There are no rules.
That's what I'm saying. Like the NCAA has had all these things go against them. So like, let's buy a year of the NCAA existing again by starting over. And I don't know, let's think back to 1984, the CAA. Let's do that. The College Athletics Association that was involved in some Supreme Court cases. So maybe let's change the name and let's just call it the IAA, the Intercollegiate Athletics Association. Now runs college sports, and everybody files paperwork with their Board of Regents. And by next Monday, we have the IAA, and now we can start over and actually have some rules for like 12 months until the court cases catch back up. Like, what else can you do? Like, there's no point in playing sports if this happens. There's literally no point. It's worse than beer league then. Like, at least beer league, one guy's going to get drunk and somebody's going to win. Nobody can throw a beer league game.
This is the closest thing that I've seen. I've seen people talk about this. I don't want to bring up politics, but they talk about, if something gets passed by the Supreme Court, that's that. Like, there's nothing you can do. And I've seen people bring up, like, how long until people just say, they don't like the Supreme Court's decision. They just say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do my own thing. And that's kind of what's happened here.
Pete Thamel made that exact statement. I don't know if you watched his interview on McAfee's show.
I had not, no.
So
but that's what it reminded me of. I was like, that's basically what's happened.
He said, I had a power conference, I believe it was a Big 12 athletic director, say, what's stopping me at this point from calling my last 10 guys, or like, okay, we're getting into OTAs and everything in summer ball for the NFL. Take the first 10 guys off of the New England Patriots or whatever closest NFL team exists to you. Take the first 10 guys off the practice squad, give them some NIL money that's probably going to beat their rookie deal in the NFL CBA these days, and say, welcome to Lubbock, Texas.
That's what's happening with the NBA, the G League.
That's what, but they said, what's stopping me? All I got to do is find a judge in my local circuit court to sign off on it that went to our law school, which is every circuit court in the country.
You've done most of the talking here, and I'm sure I sound like an idiot bringing all this up, but like, what's stopping a local judge from saying, you know what, Alabama, I know the NCAA says you get to have whatever the number is, 105 scholarships now. It used to be 85. Now I think it's 105. You get 150. Like, what's stopping?
It's anti-competitive. You're eliminating them to 105. The 106th guy doesn't get a scholarship. He has to go to Auburn. It's anti-competitive. There you go. Done.
Now I know how dumb I sound. You are clearly more knowledgeable about this than I am, but
you don't even sound dumb. You sound like a fucking judge. You sound like a judge right now.
My favorite part of his ruling, I didn't read the entire thing, but my favorite part of the ruling was, well, he can help people with he's
going to be the poster boy for gambling addiction.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I was like, give me a fucking break, dude. He did it at Indiana, he did it at Cincinnati. You don't think he's going to do it at Tech, and you don't think he's going to show others how to do it at Tech?
That's every Texas Tech fan's argument I've seen today is, well, what have we done wrong? Nothing yet, other than support it. And because people were like, oh, like Texas Tech's try, and this is the best part. If you didn't read through the full screenshot that I sent you from the Texas Tech fan that called, as a donor of Texas Tech, called Kirby Hocutt's office today and said, hey, I just want to let y'all have a piece of my mind, respectfully. And the poor personal assistant, bless her heart. You can't often say bless her heart.
I can't believe what she's gone through.
That girl is going to never work. She knew, like, if anybody needs a free therapist, it is the personal assistant for Kirby Hocutt. Like, that girl needs whatever she needs. She needs a shoulder to cry on. I'm sure you and I could help out with that. But, tongue in cheek, of course. But, like, that's, like, whatever she needs to get through the next 3 or 6 months. Like, I don't care what Texas Tech's paying her. It's not enough. But she gave this particular donor, who then sent it to all several thousand members on the college football subreddit, said, here's the 6 emails that she gave me to CC on every email to the Texas Tech athletic department, letting them know that you think this is absolutely ridiculous because they're all being compiled so Kirby Hocutt can read all of them. Because Kirby Hocutt wants to let you believe, he wants you to, well, ChatGPT, he's going to give him a nice summary. I trust you.
I was like, dude, I don't read my email. I barely read my emails at work. You think he's going to go through fan emails? Absolutely not.
And so, like, that's their, and people are like, oh, what's Texas Tech done wrong? They're distancing themselves. Like, and even, there's one thing you can hold against his personal assistant. They're like, oh, the university was left holding the bag. This is Jeffrey Kessler's fault. Who did Jeffrey Kessler write Kirby Hocutt's statement that he sent out yesterday that said, we're glad this came to a just resolution and we look forward to welcoming back into our football building? Because I think that was Kirby Hocutt that said that. That wasn't Jeffrey Kessler. That was Kirby Hocutt that said, yeah, I'm down with this. Let's do it. So I don't want to, and if Kirby, like, you want to talk about guys that have been blackballed from sports, Kirby Hocutt has sold his soul. His career is over. I mean, he's already Power 4 AD in later stages of his career. He probably didn't have much of a career left. He's probably going to retire at Tech. So, beside the point. Kirby Hocutt's never getting another job again. Anybody in Texas Tech, like, that was like there and they're like, oh, let's look at, you apply for a job and you were in the Texas Tech athletic department in year of the Lord 2026. Were you good with that? Did you say anything? Like, that's going to be the question when you're applying. Like, you want a job at like Utah State after you leave Lubbock. They're going to be like, oh, how'd you feel about Kirby Hocutt back when you were there? Like, that question is now permanently attached to Texas Tech University forever.
Yeah. What do you think happens?
I think really what I think happens is this boycott thing. Texas Tech is going to be.
I don't think that's going to go very far. It's all talk,
it will outside of the Big 12, because the Big 10 is going to have a meeting on that on Thursday. I believe it is scheduled for Thursday, Friday. The Big 10 and the SEC are probably going to blackball them, but they're not. There's not a ton of overlap on those schedules. The ACC has said absolutely nothing, or at least that I've seen. The Big 12 is the only one that can really do anything. And I, outside of ejecting Texas Tech, which I would love to see it. It's not going to happen. I would love to see them say, I'm not sure that there's a bylaw in the Big 12 agreement for this. If there isn't, there should be one. Conduct detrimental to the Big 12, to quote every NFL suspension in the last 25 years. Conduct detrimental to the team or league. Bye. Get out of our conference. Go play with the Pac 2.5 or whatever, 8 or 62 1/3 that they are these days.
It's up to I think it's up to 8 now.
Well, it's 8, but it's like Texas State Community College.
Yeah, it's all it's
Amarillo, like,
yeah.
And it's you feel bad.
Did you know that North Dakota State was joining FBS? I didn't know that until a couple days ago.
No, I saw that, and then we've railroaded them with every other good, terrible story in the last 6 months since they announced it. But yeah, it comes down to whatever Brett Yormark has the cojones to do, because that's what
I wouldn't put it past him. Honestly, he's been very outspoken in the past. I think he's got balls.
He's made some brass decisions, and also is willing to admit when he's wrong. But I think because people are like, oh, look, the Big 12 had the 3-hour yell at Kirby session today. We don't schedule meetings at the higher levels of athletics on a whim. And then, oh, by the way, that's not the only meeting the Big 12 is having this week. That was the ADs that said, hey, boys, clear your calendars at 9 a.m. Central Time. The presidents and the ADs are going to get on the big boys phone call later this week for everybody to yell at whoever the poor bastard is that's in charge of, as the listed president of Texas Tech, who has nothing to do with any of this other than just hiring Kirby Hocutt. I don't even know who that individual's name is. But they're about to get 27 earfuls if Kirby's allowed to speak. Probably not. Maybe 26. Or no, there's 30 earfuls from the other 16 members times 2, or 15 members times 2. Plus, Yormark might chime in and be like, all right, boys, let's, okay, also you guys are wrong. But, he owned up when the whole glass court debacle happened, and they fixed that in 10 minutes after it blew up in their faces one day in to the men's tournament. The women's tournament suffered. Whatever happens that he's able to put through, because ultimately I think what happens if the Big 12 has enough teams, because Kansas State has said we're not playing them in any sports. They haven't said that on the record, but
I don't know how you get away with that, but I hear you.
Well, I think it's whichever team, if they're willing to take the financial hit to prove the point, it's the ADs that have some cachet at their institution that they can, or they have somebody that, I don't know, has made some significant change to be like, hey, no, we're not down with this. Like, we'll cover the hole in the budget while this happens. That's one way that this gets through, is that somebody in the Big 12 steps up, and then you have like, oh, well, yeah, no, Utah's not going to play Texas Tech in any sports this year. When you have one, all it's going to take, honestly, I think it's going to take one to actually put pen to paper, put a press release out there and say, fine us. Okay, fine.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know.
But I think it's really what it's going to be is if enough of these things happen in small pockets, it's a pressure campaign is what it is at this point. The simplest way that this gets done is either this accelerated appeal goes through, and maybe after like the entire continental and intercontinental sporting community, judges are not, they say that they're impartial and they're going to, if it's up to those 4 judges to do the right thing, and if they don't, it's when does Texas Tech decide? Because it may not be other members of the Big 12. It may not be the Big 10 saying we're not playing you in any sports. Then Texas Tech gets to where everybody's afraid to play us. No, they're not. Where this
we saw that Orange Bowl.
Right. I was like, did you guys score in the postseason? No. Okay, cool. Where this becomes an issue is within Lubbock. It has to die from within. Admissions go down.
Yeah.
Donors pull money. Besides Cody Campbell, he can pull as many zeros in his bank account as he wants to. Admissions become a problem. Reputation becomes a problem. Donations from other individuals to other parts of the university that are critical start disappearing. You have to cut the snake out at the heart. You have to cut the snake's head off. You can leave Campbell out to die because he has made his bed. He has chosen his hill. Let him die on it. But you have to take the rest of Texas, the rest of Texas Tech has to band together as a community and say, that guy ain't it. We are Texas Tech. And that's how this gets solved. I hate to be that
guy. I don't think that's going to happen either.
I think it doesn't happen quickly if it does. I'll say that.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Yormark steps in. I really do believe that. I think he could step in.
I think it's not going to be a quick like that. I will say this for
this is going to be a talking point leading up to opening week.
He wants to step in, but I think he has probably not put his phone down at whatever legal counsel represents Arlington. He is finding as many options to say, how do I get us out of this without this becoming a circus? Because that's, if he can tie it, you just have to get your own injunction. If he can get his own injunction that says your injunction, and then we just say,
yeah. Anyway, so I think
Sorsby just twists an ankle and gets benched.
I think it's possible that the Big 12 steps in. I think it's more likely that he plays this season. Sorsby plays this season. We deal with it. It'll be a huge talking point going into week 1. And whatever suspension he serves going into week 3, it'll still be a talking point. And then he'll play, and then we'll go the full season. We'll forget about it. And then there will be some legislation, rule change, whatever, in the next offseason, next year, the year after that, that's deemed like the Brendan Sorsby rule, and then it gets hopefully resolved.
He will be the last, whether he suits up in week 3 or not. He will be the last.
Oh, I totally agree. Like this has set a dangerous precedent, and I do think everyone's united against it. And I do think something gets done. Like I don't think this is like what college athletics is going to be. Now, what worries me is just these judges just being like, nope, I'm not going to listen to the NCAA. Tuscaloosa County, I don't even remember if it's Tuscaloosa County or not, and I grew up in Alabama. But Monongalia County judge, where Morgantown is, can just be like, nope, I'm not listening to the NCAA's decision. Raekwon, how many times have we filed an appeal against the NCAA in the last 5 years to get eligibility for a player, and it gets shot down? Raekwon Battle had that battle. Raekwon Battle had that battle. But we dealt with it there, playing. And we didn't have a judge come in and say, you know what, he's playing. That's what worries me, and we need to nip this in the bud, and because this cannot continue. That opens up so many doors. And my dad was like, why does Georgia care what happens at Texas Tech? When I shared that they're not scheduling Texas Tech, I was like, it's the principle. This cannot continue. And what they are thinking of is an Alabama judge saying, okay, Bama, you can increase your scholarships to 150 players. Screw the NCAA. You can pluck guys from practice squads, whatever. It is no.
Jalen Hurts gets benched in Philly. Hey, how you feel about suiting up for us this weekend? You know the playbook.
Exactly. This cannot continue. This opens up too many doors, and there's
no point to following the rules. That is
exactly
like take the gambling monolith of nonsense aside. This has shown us there is no point to following anything.
Yep. I think that's all that needs to be said. I got to make dinner, man. I didn't make dinner yet.
Good.
It's almost 8 p.m. here. So I'm going to leave it at that. Talked a lot, man. We're going on 2 hours. You did most of the talking for Sorsby. We both kind of stepped in for Omaha. But as for Sorsby, I think we're just stuck with it. I don't think anything's going to happen. I think we're going to watch him play. It'll be a storyline pretty much the whole season. We'll forget about it by December. And then there will be some sort of legislation.
If he sucks, it becomes funny. And that's the silver lining we can hope for, is that he throws 3 picks.
I'm hoping that Tech falls.
But also, the first game he plays
is
against an upstart Houston team. Just throwing that out there. A Houston team that should be ranked by the end of the year. That's his first game. I want to see a couple of interceptions in the first half, and then we can all laugh about it.
All right, Dylan. I appreciate you coming on and talking about. I mean, these are 2 big stories: going Omaha and the Mountaineers specifically in Omaha, and this Brendan Sorsby case. Once that came out, I was like, I got a podcast about this.
Friday, 2 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Find a TV and a Mountaineer, and keep the couches away from the lighters.
I got to get to Omaha first, and it's a long ass drive for me, but if all goes well, the good Lord watches over me, I'll be there.
Hey, be there watching you.
Awesome. All right, my man. I'll see you later.
See ya.